Good morning. I believe we are live. Hello, hello, hello. This is my first time setting up in this location with the new streaming setup, so fingers crossed you're seeing me in beautiful, crisp 4K detail and with crystal clear audio. Leave me a message below if you're joining us live right now and let me know that you're hearing me and seeing me. So I hadn't been using this live streaming setup for a little while because I had some issues when I updated my operating system a few months back that my streaming setup no longer was compatible. But thanks to Thomas, we got that all sorted out in the last couple of days. So we're back and looking really nice. This is, my home studio location in Hong Kong that I'm streaming from now. And I wanted to jump in and take an hour to go through and answer any questions you guys have. Now, if you have been watching for a while, you'll note that I often avoid really generic gear questions and, sometimes we'll filter out completely ridiculous questions. But this time around, I have saved out every question that I had posed on my Matt Granger Instagram, my Art Nude Portraiture Instagram, in my stories on Instagram, as well as here on YouTube. There's a messaging feature that I put up a what would you like to know post yesterday. So I have saved them all out. And if technology plays nicely, they should all pop up where you're seeing that little logo just here. And we can go through them together. But because there are, how many is it saying? 38 questions and then whatever we get live. I'll need to move through them. Some of them are repetitive, so I'll answer it the first time and then refer back. Hopefully I've noticed that it seemed there were some common themes from the keywords that I saw as I saved them. So hopefully I can find an articulate road through it rather than being duplicate. Hi to Troy, Ian, Al, thank you for joining. Let us know where you're chiming in from and if you have any questions of your own, and I'll just get started. If you're not already following along on Instagram, that's the place where I share the most in between YouTube videos, so that's worth checking out. That's just _Matt Granger or Art Nude Portraiture. So, Floris the photographer, what are your thoughts on medium format film as a cheaper entry point to the format? It's like so much of this, all I can do is tell you my personal opinion. I don't claim it to be right or wrong. It's based on my observation and my experience. And, take it with a grain of salt. Fine if you disagree. I see there's certain things that appeal to people for film shooters broadly and medium format shooters, and there is sometimes an overlap between the two, but not always. So it depends which camp you fall into. If you're looking to slow down, be more methodical, more mindful, take fewer and hopefully better shots, then people often use medium format or film to do that. Just keep in mind, if you're looking to go down that route, where you are in the world and how much it actually costs for buying film, developing film, and printing it or scanning it. When I was doing a little myself, if you want like a really high quality scan to get you into the ballpark of a medium format digital file, you can be looking at, I'm not exaggerating, over $50 per frame to get a top level drum scan easily. To get like a gallery quality printable TIFF scan, you could be looking at hundreds of dollars for a single frame. So just factor that in when you're thinking of it as a cheap option. Great to see the people streaming in the chat now. Hi, Troy, Philip, Jawad, Colin, Anders, Nerd, Harley. I see your questions there. I'm just going to go through some of the ones I have saved out here already, and then I'll jump back to look at yours. Another one from Floors. If you had only one lens and body to shoot portraits whilst traveling, what would they be? Probably almost what I'm filming with here. I actually did a lot of the course that I have on pre-sale right now. This guy, the desert road trip shoot with Suki, and because we were shooting in like over 100-degree Fahrenheit weather, like 46, 48 50-degree weather, not 50, but 46, 48 Celsius, and hiking, I wanted the lightest kit I possibly could. So I was pretty much using the Z7 Mark II and the 24-70, occasionally with on-camera flash. And for some of the shoots, we used a wider lens or a longer lens or a prime, but for a lot of it, it was that setup, 24-70 f2.8 and the Nikon Z7 Mark II, which is hugely dirty and in need of a sensor clean now, and I'm taking it in later that week for that. Thank you for both of those questions, Flores. Johanna Martinez, my dear friend Johanna. Hopefully you guys saw the video we put out together at the diner, and there's also one coming on my World's Best Seafood channel. What's your favorite food in Hong Kong, and do you miss me? You're hilarious. Of course I miss you. We talk like every second day anyway, but yes, Kate and I both miss you very much. You're a sweetheart. Favorite food in Hong Kong? I think she's asking this because she had been telling me I had to try Carbon, Italian in New York, the whole time I knew her, and I never went. And then I finally went to their Hong Kong outlet just the other day, and it was fantastic. But there's so much fantastic international food. If you name a cuisine, Malay or Russian or Kazakh or Lao or Italian, French, Spanish, there's outstanding examples of everything in Hong Kong, but you'd have to choose something that's local to be a favorite in Hong Kong. So I have a particular wonton noodle shop in Central that I absolutely love. And then there's some very local, I'm not sure the exact term, it's just like a really not fancy restaurant that serve seafood. So when you make it over here, Joe, all of the food will be on me. So please come soon. Club Subri, why do you like Nikon so much? It's a fair question insofar as I'm fortunate to get to shoot with most things on the market. So why have I chosen to stick with Nikon? I won't look for any subtext in the question, just to straight up answer it. I grew up shooting Olympus. My father was an Olympus film shooter. I inherited his cameras. I still have most of his old film cameras. And it was was my first love. I was shooting back in university days and doing more and more event stuff, and their on-camera flash and their flash options generally weren't very well developed with those early like EM5 type cameras. So I was looking for alternatives. I'd been to some shops and had tried out some Nikons and really liked the ergonomics. It was out of my budget at the time. And then I was traveling with my soon-to-be best man in France and saw a magazine come out. I think it was the D200 or D200S. In French, and was having him translate what it was saying about this camera, and was blown away by the specs. And when I got home and felt it in my hand, I saved up and got it, and since then it's like a part of my hand now. I'm not brand loyal in the sense that if they really messed up or I felt they were doing completely the wrong thing, that I wouldn't move on, or if someone else came out with something that just suited my needs so well, I would add it or replace it. I do also have a Sony A7S III that we use for slow-mo filming, but it does the job for me and it's really comfortable. And right now I'm filming with a Z6 Mark II and I have a pair of Z7 Mark IIs, and I love the results and I love the experience of shooting with them, and that's that. And I'm not here to tell anyone to buy a Nikon. I have no commercial relationship with Nikon. What I would say is, I hope that you shoot with whatever you love and makes you want to go out there and shoot in the same way that my equipment does for me. Oops, sorry, I skipped one there. I will do 2 or 3 more here that I've got saved, and then I'll go back to the questions we're getting in here live. Manual Tech, would you choose 1 massive zoom lens or 4 compact primes? You get this question a lot. It's so hypothetical. When you're saying 1 massive zoom, are you saying like one that doesn't really exist, like a 24-200 f1.8, so then it really covers all of the primes? or something realistic like a 24-70 f2.8. You could potentially have a 24mm, a 28mm, a 35mm, and a 50mm that are all within that range. In that case, I would most likely take the zoom, although that's not massive. But there are certainly some primes that I take, and I was using the 51.2 from Nikon a lot on my recent trip. It would really depend on what I'm doing as well. If I'm carrying it hiking, depending on how massive it is, I'd probably go for the 1 zoom. If I were in studio and the image quality were better from the primes, then I would go for primes. Keith's Travel. Is there any photo theme or location that you'd like to shoot but just haven't gotten there yet? My friend, there's so many. As you travel more, the list of places you want to go seems to grow faster than the list of places you have been. There's things that I want to shoot and places that I want to shoot, and with, having had the last year and a half thinking about travel, that list has just been growing. Off the top of my head, one thing that I really want to photograph is narwhal, the animals in the wild from a helicopter. So there's one off the tip of the iceberg. 2 more questions and then let's look at the live ones. Wanting to upgrade from Canon 6D. Should I get a 5D SR or 5D4? I'm a stills, editorial and lifestyle shooter. So this is a little bit more pointed, but when I get generic gear questions, my general response is, and I mean this not to be dismissive, I mean this to sincerely be helpful, is you need to look at what you're shooting with, what limitations you're finding, whether it's I cannot get this result and I need to, or it would be nice to have, it would be fun to have, whatever. I'm not judging your motivations, but whatever it is, I wish it had more frames per second. I wish it had more resolution, or whatever it could be for you. And then look at what's on the market, look at your budget and choose what will suit you. I can't tell you if the higher resolution, older technology 5DSR or the lower resolution, newer technology 5D4 are going to suit your needs better. One thing I'd say, I recently saw that the 5DSR was like 65% off at B&H Photos, so you might want to check that out. Let me just see if that's actually correct. Let's see, are you seeing what I'm seeing here? Hopefully you are. Yeah, $1,500 down from $3,900, so pretty crazy. But I'm sincerely, I don't want to be dismissive, but I can't answer that for you. If you said, is the Nikon Z6 II or Z7 II better at dot, and I have tested that, I'd be happy to answer it. But with a what should you buy question, it really comes down to you, because the difference between a $2,000 camera and a $3,000 camera, to some people won't be much of a difference. For some people, it's all the difference in the world. So you have to compare your needs and budget. Favorite shooting location? That's really tough. Let me give you a couple off the top of my head, because I can't just choose one. For like interesting tribal culture to shoot, to photograph people in location, it would be Ethiopia. Really hope they get through their current turmoil. I am dying to go back. In terms of landscape that I've been, it's probably a tie between Namibia, Iceland, and Australia. For just the overall untouched, unchanged authenticity of a place, it would be Bhutan. There's things that I absolutely love about New York, there's things I love about Hong Kong, so picking just one location is quite difficult. So let's take a look at the live. I've got a 2 monitor set up here, and then showing back, kind of my camera is right between them, so hopefully this is all flowing well. I'd love to get your comments on if this is looking and sounding good, or if you're seeing any glitches, because I want to get this really firing as well as we can. So, first of all, hi Sean, Photomix, Harley, Bassam, Colin, Jake, Anders, Philip Martini, so many. Thank you all for joining. If I missed anyone, I apologize. Nerd, how long do you think you'll live in Hong Kong? I've got more questions about Hong Kong coming as well. Right now, I don't know. My visa is a spouse visa because my wife's a citizen. So, in theory, it just basically rolls over each year, but you need to do the paperwork, but there should be no problem with that. We haven't decided, but I would expect at least 3 or 4 years we would stay. The cost and what's involved with moving internationally, it's not really worth it for us to do it for less than, at least 3 years, I'd say. Questions. Someone chiming in from Sudbury, Ontario. Very cool. Colin Cameron, did you change your streaming gear when you moved to Hong Kong, or did you have to get adapters? Two things on that. That is a nice reminder. Thank you, Colin. A lot of the things that I have done videos on in the past, so if I refer to that again, I'm not meaning to be dismissive, but I don't have someone in the chat moderating who can do that for me. So I've done a video that explains what my streaming setup is. That's basically what you're seeing now. So if anyone is interested in that specifically, just search my channel and you'll find it. I didn't need to change anything, and to be honest, most things don't, because most products will accept a voltage of 110 to 240, so you're fine. Even American that's using 100, 120, and here is 220, and Australia's 240. Most of anything with a transformer is fine. My streaming setup runs through a Blackmagic card in my computer, so that wasn't an issue either. But I did normally use the Sony A7S, and I'm currently using the Z6 just for a little bit of a change. Bassam, I hope one day you could review the Phase 1 IQ80 CCD color sensor. Is that because you have one and you want reinforcement, or you're thinking about getting one? As far as I know, that's a fairly old piece of tech. I can't see myself just coming across one of them and having the opportunity to shoot with it, I'm sorry. Photomix, are you in a live in every continent? I guess you mean is that what I'm trying to do, to try and live in every continent? Nope, that's not the goal. I have more questions coming up about why Hong Kong and that kind of thing, so we'll touch on that when I get to that. Photomix Media spouse, are you media? This is news to me. Wow, welcome to the news. Yes, I've been married for over 10 years and still am. Sean, good to hear that you are seeing and hearing me well. Thank you for the feedback. So let's jump into the questions that I have saved out, because we still have lots. My editor is due to arrive at 10, so we have 40 minutes. So actually we're making pretty good time. At this moment, please sit back, relax, and give me a moment to have a sip of coffee. Since I was gone, my wife switched the house over to oat milk, which on paper I hated the idea of, but it actually tastes pretty good in coffee. Tielg, years ago you were wearing a t-shirt with the text Brinta on it. Why? It's a NL breakfast brand, Netherlands. Okay, so Tielg, fantastic memory you have there. I don't claim to, I'm not putting some subversive messages in through my t-shirts. I'm currently wearing a Ding Ding one. That's the Hong Kong tram. I think I remember the one you mean. It was like a mouse. Was it a mouse? I had two t-shirts that I just got at one of those quirky retro screen printed designs. One was a mouse that had a tile in his, a knot in his tail that I think was about cheese, and one I think, was about breakfast. There was no reason why, other than it's commonly expected to cover your torso when you go out in public, so I have t-shirts. But it wasn't any kind of message. I have been to the Netherlands and love it, but I don't speak the language or anything. How are you enjoying your GMT? good question. I'm actually wearing it right now. And what watch are you going to buy next? So I know not everyone here is a watch enthusiast. Leave me a message if you are into watches. I imagine it's only 10% or so, but there seems to be a decent overlap with photographers. I really like the GMT, so I'm not like the Uber watch guy who knows every single detail about everything, but this is the one I think they call the Bat Girl on the Jubilee bracelet. It's got the 2 time zones and it's super rugged. This is the only watch that I took to my recent trip to the States and I wore it all the time and I've been wearing it all the time since as well. It's my I wear it most days. And what watch are you going to buy next? I'm not like I'm also not a rabid collector. I don't own like a dozen watches or something like that. I have friends who own like 50 and most of them are junk and then they have like 5 or 10 great ones. I'm not terribly interested in that. I'm on a wait list for a couple of pieces that I really, really want, but that's more of a will I ever get approved from the company to get it rather, so it's not my choice in a sense. But my kind of the watch I'm really lusting after at the moment is the AP open work double balance wheel in any of the materials, steel, rose gold, or oh, I'm guessing you just saw that just die on me. Whoops. Hello, 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 hello. Are you able actually to hear me now? Hi, folks. I'm really sorry about that. The Nikon overheated. So how about that? We always talk about Sony and overheating, but my Nikon, I got a thing flashing up saying the camera has overheated. You can't use it until it's cooled down. So now I'm on my 1080 webcam instead. So very sorry about that. That's a little embarrassing, but c'est la vie. Shit happens. So now we're using my headphones, and uh, this is how it's going to look for the rest of the day. So let's just rearrange this screen a little bit. That's probably about as good as we can get. Although I have a feeling I have a bit more space on this side. There we go, get the window out of the shot. Sorry about that, guys. And well, there you go. It is 32 Celsius in Hong Kong, so that bummer that happens. So I guess I'll need to go back to the Sony. The only reason I went to the Nikon, to be honest, was I have the 24 to 72/8 on that, which is a much nicer lens, and I wanted to get my background nice and soft. So I went for that, and now I have found a limitation. I had the AC on, but down at the lowest setting so that you guys wouldn't hear it. So shit happens. All right, let's jump back in and continue with the questions. Please do let me know what else, if there's any technical issues that I should be aware of so I can fix it up. How was Suki to shoot with? She seems really funny. Yes, she was. If you guys haven't met her, let me show you again. This is the new course. Um, so it's actually quite funny. So I shot with, and I'm trying not to use her her given name because she she doesn't use that publicly. But years ago, I shot with, are you guys still hearing me? I hope so. I shot with this model in Hawaii for one of my art nude in public books. And then I went back to Hawaii again and shot with her again. And in the time between my last time seeing her and now, she became this Twitch streaming um, superstar, and she happened to be in LA at the same time as me, so we caught up to do this road trip together. And she goes by the name Suki Yuki, like sukiyaki, because of her Japanese background, raised in Hawaii, but to Japanese parents. Um, and yeah, she was really fun to shoot with. It was just her, Jonathan, my videographer, and myself for a 3 day road trip into the desert, which we made into a 5.5 hour behind the scenes road trip. And that is now up on pre sale. It's going live at the end of the week, and it's over 70% off until then. So if you want to grab that, now's the time. Just checking, we have Gregory Fricker. Oh no, it looks like that camera can never be used professionally now that it had an overheat error. Sincerely, an R5 user. Yeah, like the R5, if it overheats like this, it won't be used for this professional purpose. And I didn't buy the Z624 streaming. I just wanted to test it out with this lens. But if I were buying an R5, it would be for half of the video capabilities. And because of its overheating, I didn't buy it. So I know you're being sarcastic, but I agree with you anyway. Um, now that I'm on the webcam, maybe I should boost up this power a little bit. It'll be okay. Let's go back into the questions. So I'm sorry, these now get a little bit tiny, but I guess I could make it bigger now that I'm using this janky webcam, which is quite unfortunate. So then you guys can still read the questions. How about that? Mr. Panthers 23, I'm an enthusiast at best. My models are two small kids and my wife. Any chance you could do a kid portrait video? I do think that I did one very early on in my channel, just when I had gotten started. I was doing kid and family portraits at the time. I actually find a lot of the tips for photographing kids are similar to photographing pets, so that might also be worth checking out. But yeah, potentially that's something I could do in the future. What's the most compelling innovation in digital photography that has influenced you most in recent years? That's interesting. Um, Influenced me most is the hanging point. There were lots of innovations in digital photography. I wouldn't say that there's been anything in the photography side that has really changed the way I work. Uh, I suppose influenced me. No, I don't want to like hang on that word, but I do feel like it's not like what I think was the most game changing or opened up the market or whatever, but influential for me. Um, I guess having really high quality EVFs has been something important because it opens up using all kinds of different lenses and getting a full punch in to see your focus on them. So that's been quite something. Um, John Drummond, you lived in Australia and New York and now Hong Kong. I'm sure you've missed a country or two. Do you plan at some point to change home bases again? If so, where might you move next and why? When we moved to Hong Kong, we kind of surveyed several different options and decided on Hong Kong. Um, the most obvious one at the moment, if we needed to move from here at shorter notice, would most likely be to Singapore. Um, I am well, my wife and I are both Australian citizens, so Australia is obviously an option, but I have a feeling we'll end up retiring or, at some point going back to Australia, but not in the next few years. I could more likely see myself doing more extended, kind of spending 6 months or a year traveling around a country. Rather, wouldn't necessarily say that I'm moving there though. I know my life is extremely easy not having kids, but it's still a little complicated by having pets, I can't really just leave for a year and leave the cats with pet sitters. Mr. Panther, could you retract your statement about buying the 51 II? I was quite happy with the Nifty 50 from Canon, but I'm now intrigued by the RF 51 II. I need help fighting against gas now, thanks to you. Please convince me. Don't tell my wife. Um, okay, so I'll devil's advocate it both ways for you. The Nifty 50 gives you everything you need. Most clients won't tell the difference. It's lighter, it's much cheaper. If you break it, you can just replace it 10 times over and probably still be ahead. Um, it performs fine, and in most situations, it will give you really, really great images. The 1.2 is crazy expensive, crazy big, crazy heavy. You would have to be a lot more careful shooting with it. It is, however, exceptional, and in some situations, the results you get off it are really fantastic. But is that worth a couple of $1,000s? I'll leave that to you and your wife, who's no doubt listening. Um, okay, as a Nikon Z user, what's your view on the 24-70 f4 compared to the 2.8? I've done a video on this in the past. The f4 is a great, well above what we tend to think of as a kit lens, but the 2.8 is in a different ballpark. It's not that I think always the more expensive is the better, but the 24-70 Nikon that just overheated, I think is what probably my favorite of all of the mirrorless lenses currently on the market from any manufacturer. Tomislav, I'll cut you off here early, I'm sorry, but I have not had a chance to use that adapter, I'm sorry. Jonathan Stewart, my good friend, do you feel trapped in Hong Kong with the restrictions on re-entry? Trapped. No, I don't feel trapped. It is limiting having restrictions and quarantine coming back into the country. To some people, I might sound crazy. To others, I might sound quite fair. I don't know, but all I can do is tell the truth, right? Um, so let me break down two examples. When I came back into Hong Kong, I needed to have a test to show that I was negative. By having a vaccine and having documentation of it, it reduced my quarantine time. On arrival into Hong Kong, you do another test at the airport, wait for the results, then take a bus. They take you to your hotel, check you in, and then I had 2 weeks in a quarantine hotel, in which that time I had another 3 tests in the room, which they've adjusted the timing of based on what they've found in terms of when the different variants can sometimes pop up, and then am released. And all of those tests and everything are covered by the country. And Hong Kong has had, I think, none or one case in the last month, no deaths, and it's a country that's denser than Manhattan in New York. And, at the moment, we have fewer cases this year than most big cities have daily still. Going to LA, I had to do a health declaration, but not prove anything to get on the plane. Then that was for Cathay. Then one for the CDC, one for the TSA, and one for LA County, which would all be checked on arrival. When I arrived, no one checked anything. There wasn't even customs. You just picked up your bag, walked out, grabbed your hire car, and went wherever you wanted. I would rather live here at the expense of that flexibility and know that the chance of getting sick or dying or passing it to someone who may get sick or die is almost non-existent. So it's a shitty time to be a traveler, but I think Hong Kong's doing it better than most places. Nikon D7500, what is the world's current population? You know what? That is a burning question for all of us. Let's just double check that for you. I'm going to say 8.6 billion. I haven't checked it in years. Oh, 7.6, but that was last year. We've had quite a few people die this year, but then I'm sure there's been lots of baby making with people stuck home with COVID, so I don't know. Let's say 7.7-ish. Thank you for the burning question. Luciferms, are you still shooting with Nikon in 2021? Yes, and I've already answered that question about what I'm shooting with. Eddie Bosis, I have a D810 and a Sigma 85. What's the best setting to use? Eddie, I would suggest taking a look at a few of the getting started tutorials here on YouTube. I have plenty. There's countless numbers from different people. You could also check out my Educating Tina series where I went through and showed a beginner how to get started and what aperture is and how to get the most out of the different settings on your camera. You've got some great gear there, but there isn't a simple put it on this setting and go. You would be best served, I think, by learning how to use it properly. Start learning how to shoot in manual, not that you have to stay there, but so you understand the mechanics of what's happening inside your camera, and then you'll come to learn what's the best and most appropriate settings depending on the situation you're shooting. I'm going to do 3 more questions here, and then we'll jump back into the live stream chat. CyberFox007, with film photography making a comeback and being popular again, do you think that Canon, Nikon, and Fujifilm should make film cameras again? I'll have to take issue with your opening premise. It's not popular again. And in your circle, it may be making a comeback again, but it simply isn't popular. I get it. It's like watches. You can get so into them that you just assume everyone around you is excited about the new releases and gives a damn, but it's a tiny population. And you and your friends and the people you're around may be starting to get interested in film, and it goes in waves like people buying yo-yos and wearing flared pants. But it just isn't. The numbers bear it out. Maybe there's a good market to keep the used market turning over, but Nikon until last year was still selling the Nikon F6 film camera and discontinued it. Leica still make an MA and an MP film camera, but check the sales statistics of them versus their digital ones. It's just not. So no, I don't think it's in Canon, Nikon, or Fuji's interest to start making new film cameras again. And I don't think it's in film users' interest either, because in my experience, half of what people enjoy about shooting film is the old mechanical tactile feeling of the cameras. And you know for sure if they remade them now, it's going to be more the plasticky modern design, because that's what they're set up to do. It's not going to be an all steel camera anymore. It'll be something that looks like a Nikon ZFC, but without a digital sensor in it. And I don't know that that will satisfy the analog lust that people have and want in their hand. Not to shit on you, love your film, go for it, enjoy it, but it's just not as popular as people might think once they're in it in a broad sense. Last one, and then we'll go to the live questions. Alan Aperture, how do you price your work? So this is, so my background before getting into photography, I studied economics and business, politics. I did marketing and anyway, there is a lot of theory and practice, like built up practice of what are the best methods and models for setting up your pricing that really do, for the most part, hold. It's not, I probably have done a video on it here in the past on YouTube for like 6 or 7 years ago, and in my Business of Photography course, which is over at mattgrangerphotography.com. Here. You can check it out. We go through that in so many different ways to break it down. There's a couple of different, there's 10 different models that could work for you. 2 that you might want to think about if you focus on what you need if you break down and figure out, and I'm super simplifying all of this, but let's say if after all of your expenses and what taxes in your country and yada, 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 you need to bring in $100,000 a year, knowing that some of that will go to expenses and tax and da da da. Then, based on that, you could figure out, okay, so realistically, I'm going to need to be doing, I'm only going to have 3 days a week of shooting, and then the other days are going to be marketing and editing and this and that and family time. So that gives me 52 times 3 days that I can be out shooting. So the most simplistic way is, so then what is 100,000 divided by 52 times 3? And that will give you what your daily rate needs to be on average. Super basic way of doing it. You can do it all kinds of other ways, but I really think that before you think about how to price your work, you have to be thinking about who's your target market, what products do you offer, and how do you satisfy that market, and how do you reach them. Once you know the answers to all of those questions, you'll know who your competition are. You can easily find out what they're charging, and you can use that as a benchmark for figuring out what you should charge as well. So let's have a look at some live questions. I'm kind of shitty that my Nikon has died like that, and it was only after less than half the time I was planning to be live, so I won't try to set it back up again in case it shits the bed again. What a bummer. Okay, let's choose out some live ones. Sorry about that before. Harley Ruiz, do you think the new lenses for DSLR are over? I'm a Nikon shooter and I wonder if they'll produce new lenses. I bet there'll be some new DSLR ones coming out, but the focus will absolutely be more towards mirrorless. Gregory Fricker, on a serious note, have you been able to shoot with the 500 cm lately, given the prominent film culture in Hong Kong? So I had a 500 CW, not a CM, and no, I sold it in the US before I moved here because I didn't use it. Nabil saying, should I buy an Anchor or a hyperdrive as a USB-C hub? Again, not to be dismissive, but search my channel. I've done 2 videos that both went crazy, like with 1 million views, comparing heaps of different USB-C hubs, and I give the full test result speed so you can see them there and figure it out. Also, the models may have changed, so you'll need to check which ones that I have linked are still available to buy, because there's like 5 hyperdrives and 10 anchors, and their results can vary hugely. So it's important to check the exact model that I was testing. Troy asking me to read up for his question above. It's kind of hard to find. Maybe the easier way, Troy, would be for you to copy and paste it down again and put a big hashtag Ask Matt on your question so I can find it. I'm sorry, there's a lot of chats there. It's a bit boring for me to just go silent and look for your question for everyone else. Robert Lai, what do you think of the 28mm prime for Z? I haven't had a chance to test it yet. 28 is a focal length I like, though. It's weird. I like it, but then I don't go and buy a 28, so I'm not sure. I'd have to see how it is. Nerd, did you get the vaccine? Yes, I got the Pfizer, both shots earlier this year. Sean saying that I did a video on children's portraits back in 2011, so now no doubt the production quality is even worse than this. Here's an interesting question, and one that could be worth coming back to do a whole video on. Jason McGuire asks, what first sparked your interest in photography, and do your photographic interests still align with those from your early years? I'll answer it in 3 parts and really top line, because it could become an hour-long answer. I got interested in photography because my dad was interested in photography, and so was his mother, and they both shot a lot, and I kind of inherited equipment and passion from them. I shot like a roll of film at probably a week or a month for my whole childhood. Then I was fortunate in my small country town to have a dark room at the high school, so I studied photography at high school. And then I kind of fell out of it a little bit until I was at university and being able to travel a bit, and then got another camera and started entering some little photo competitions and won some, which was encouraging. Um, and I just enjoyed. I would say it has changed because at that time I was just focused on kind of capturing and documenting, and that's not how I think of photography anymore. If I try and think of it as creating and, you know, conjuring something rather than just capturing. Um, and it has to change. Your focus has to change a little bit as you start to do it as a business. So now a lot of my time is about education and teaching that, and I am really passionate about that. So it's not a sacrifice. Um, okay, I see a huge ask, Matt from Troy. Thank you for copying it. Okay, I shake due to a stroke last year. I have older cameras, the D2X and the D3 D610. I need to buy something that has the body stabilizer or my shooting days are over. What do you think I should get? So, Troy, I'm not going to try and tell you your business. Um, One thing you can consider so I've talked about this before. A good friend of mine has a tremor he didn't have a stroke, but he has a bit of a shaky hand. Um, People, young or old, have different hand holding capabilities. It's just, we're all different. Um, so some people can take a shot at 50 mil at a 50th of a second and it'll come out sharp. Some can drop down to like a 20th of a second, and some will need to be up at a 200th of a second based on how steady their hand is. So one thing you can consider is keeping your shutter speed at 2 or 3 times your focal length. So if you're shooting with a 50 mil, keep it at a 200th of a second. If you're at a 200 mil lens, keep it at a thousandth of a second, something like that. That will most likely remove the tremor for you to the extent that a mirrorless camera would with inbuilt image stabilization. If you're using lenses that have stabilization and then you're several stops of shutter speed faster, well, the sensor stabilization may give you 2, 3, 4 stops worth of stabilization. You can do that by just increasing your shutter speed. But if you want to stick with what you have there, I would probably suggest going for a Z6 Mark II or a Z6 that I'm using and just overheated. It'll take all of your full frame lenses. You can get the adapter to use your existing lenses. It has great inbuilt stabilization, and being the lower res option, it's still in the ballpark of what you already have. And if you do need to boost up your shutter speed to get the sharp shot, then you'll be able to go further with the ISO on the Z6 than you would the Z7 and still get a nice image out of it. So I would suggest that a Z6 or a Z6 Mark II. All right, let's jump back into some questions we have saved out. I note that we have some that are going to be duplicated that are coming in live, so I'm not ignoring you. Elizabeth, does your wife ever travel with you on work trips? Is it hard being apart? So if I were answering this question 2 years ago, 1 year ago, or now, the question changes. But long story short, some trips. So some tours that I run, she even comes and co-hosts. Others she doesn't. Some trips where I have some client work and some work, and then some private time she'll join. Other times not. Um, it is hard being apart, of course. It's also hard, or an adjustment, being together all the time lately. So in the past, our routine for the past 15 years had been that I was on the road kind of half the year and then would be home again. Well, like 3 weeks away, 3 weeks back, a month away, a month back, that kind of thing. So just being home for 18 months, I'm sure, took its toll on both of us. So things starting to open up actually, I think, is in our personal situation a good thing to be able to get some uh, private time in. MD Wolfgram, how do you personally find clients willing to pay your price? So this leads on nicely from the past one. You will find, whatever business you're in, a lot of the challenges we face are the same. So when I hear about an accountant or a repairman or a builder or whatever struggling because things are, they need to take on staff. The challenge of scaling your business is the same for everyone. You get to a point where you can't do it all yourself, but you also can't quite afford or justify an offsider. Everyone's going through that. And basically, if you're oversubscribed, you have more clients than you can service, you're at a point there where if you want to, you could increase your price, which will price some of those people out. And then you can, for example, do you want to do 10 portrait sessions a week at $100 each? Or if you could get it, would you rather do 5 portrait sessions at $250 a shoot? You'll have fewer, less demand, but then you'll have still enough to satisfy what you need. Um, of course, you need to be aware of if you are going to adjust your prices, then what you're offering has to change. If you get a $500 wedding photographer versus a $5,000 wedding photographer, the before, after, and on-site customer service you're going to expect from them are going to be completely different. So you need to be able to actually service that. If you're looking for the part of the answer that's before all of what I just described, that was earlier when I said about you should know who your target market are and be offering products that they want rather than just, I'm Matt and this is what I do, now come to me world and buy it. You need to turn it all around and think about what is demanded from your potential customers and then give it to them. GW, how do you build your reputation in boudoir? I'd love to expand my skill set in the genre, even though I focus on video, but I don't know how to initiate that communication aside from, hey, would you like to have an intimate portrait session? And he went on to say he'd been watching for years, and thank you. And thank you, GW. And I'm just seeing Thomas is in the live. I will answer you in a second, Thomas. So GW, I can tell you how I did it, and I would say in doing it now, 10 years or 15 years down the track, you probably want to be even more sensitive about how you do it. I would say start building a reputation for doing general portraits, get experience shooting in boudoir, whether it's with a partner or friends, whatever, doing it like you would wedding photography. No one's going to hire you to shoot a wedding if you've never shot a wedding before. They shouldn't. So you probably don't also want someone shooting your boudoir shoot if they've never done it before, but getting some experience either assisting, offering it for free where you're inexperienced, so are they, and you're just doing it to both learn and develop and build up a portfolio of great work that you're able to show them and say, this is what I do, this is what I can offer. Are you interested? Rather than just, hey, I have a camera. Do you want to try this? I think having a body of work behind you is the most important thing and the best way to build trust. Thomas, in the live chat, I name checked you earlier. It was working great, but then the Z6 Mark II that I'm filming with overheated after 25 minutes and shut down, so I had to switch back to the GoPro. But it was working just perfectly, and thank you for your advice. The connections were all working, just my Nikon overheated. Sucks. I could potentially switch it back now. I wonder if it was related to having the power plugged in. Maybe they don't like having their power plugged in. I tell you what, though, that was quite annoying. Is this gonna work? Sorry, guys. This went from being super pro to a workaround to now being really quite janky. So it's not doing much.
Image review. I don't know if it is still here. Oh, here it is. Yes, so this will work, but it's still, ta-da. So that's a bit better, huh? Let's see how long until this overheats this time. Do I look super handsome now? Oh, stop it. In that case,
I should take these headphones off in case you're hearing me twice. So, we still have lots of questions. I said an hour, but I want to get through these, so I am just going to quickly text my assistant to wait. Hey mate, I'm still going. Might need another 10 or 15 minutes. Just go to a cafe or something. Okay, so sound is done now. Hopefully you're only hearing one audio coming through. I apologize, I had the headphones and the mic going through. So leave me a comment to know that I'm sounding okay now, and I will get back into these questions. If you have more, put them in the chat. I'm here to help. Nettenhas, why Hong Kong now? So I have done that. I'm looking at the wrong camera now. I have done a video on this when I was planning to move here, explaining the whole reason of why. It wasn't just a simple political, we're done with America and we're leaving. My wife is from Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong. Her family's here. A lot of our friends are here. And my family are in Australia, which is quite close to Hong Kong. So at this time, it just made sense for us to come to Hong Kong for lots of reasons. And there are also some business advantages to being here that will make this too long of a response. But I've always wanted to live in Hong Kong, and I think now is better than later. Dellinger Chris, do you think for the next 3 years it's going to be hard for camera company to get product out due to the chip shortage, or only 1 to 2 years? That's kind of an oddly specific question. Do I think it's going, it's, you know, like when lawyers ask those questions where either answer, they've trapped you. Do I think it's going to be 3 or only 1 to 2? Well, I didn't say it's a problem at all. So this is your talking, not me. I haven't been following the chip shortage. I have no expertise on that, and I'm sorry. And there's other questions coming about, do you think the companies are going to release this, that, or the other? I don't know. I'm not them. I'm happy to answer as a guest, but I don't know. Photorescent, Hong Kong and New York are very different. Which city do you prefer? That's an interesting question, and I was just in New York. You know, it's an interesting thing when you've traveled. Maybe it's just an every person thing, but I tend to, maybe it's a sign of being a positive person rather than a negative. Maybe this is a test that they could run at psychologists. But when I think about a city, I tend to think about the positive things that I miss. And then when you get there, you're like, oh yeah, but New York also smells like garbage and there's rats everywhere. But it's such a beautiful city. I can't say that I prefer one or the other. They're 2 of my top 3 or 4 cities in the world, and I love them both for different reasons. Other than the fact that it's incredibly hot and humid here at the moment, I'm very happy to be in Hong Kong at the moment. Deval Anthony, what do you think about the resurgence of film, and will you be dipping your toes into it? As I said, I actually don't think there is a big resurgence in film. It goes in, you know, once you've been watching the industry long enough, certain people get to a certain point in their photographic journey and dip into it and then dip out of it again. If there's enough interest, sure, I can do more film stuff. I've done it in the past. There was one video I did that I really, really liked on the Nikon F6, and it never really got much in the way of any attention. Let me find that one. Yeah, well, if someone is in the chat and wants to be helpful, you could search Nikon F6 on my channel, and that's the video I meant. That's a series that I would really like to go back and do more of, so if there's interest, for sure. The basic premise was I chose a film that I loved, and then I went to reshoot the movie poster of that film with the camera that would have been the camera of the year. So I was thinking to do one with my Hasselblad 503, and let's say that was released in 92, so what was the biggest movie that year, and then we go and try and recreate the movie poster from it. I think the F6 one worked out really well, but it doesn't get that many views, and it is a lot of time and expense to do a film video, because then, if nothing else, you have to put in the time of developing and scanning all the film. So it's something. Another one from Deval. What do you think about the whole full frame versus crop sensor argument? Surely it should be about what best suits the individual rather than a blanket ethos. Again, sometimes I feel like these questions are just people wanting to make a statement, not asking me a question. Of course, it depends on the situation and the person. I don't know who's ever said full frame is always best. So I don't know how to answer that question. Friso Dennis, how are you, mate? Is there a general difference between models in Hong Kong and US? And if so, what's the difference? I think as a non-local, it may be just a language thing. So I don't know if it's something specific to Hong Kong versus the US, or if it would be the same if you were in Poland or Bangkok or wherever that you didn't speak the language as a local. That going to somewhere that is English speaking and that's all I speak, like Australia, UK, America, you have access to all models, whether they're part-time beginners or agency signed superstar professionals. So in Hong Kong, I'm finding, I find it easy to work with people who have worked with lots of other expats before, or who are kind of part-timers, but I haven't found too many full-time, fantastic, really experienced models. I haven't found as many here as I had access to in the States. When I was in LA, I probably had, for what did I do? Maybe 8 or 9 shoots I did in LA. I probably had over 100 verified potential candidates apply for them to choose from out of the several hundred who had applied and got whittled down to that 100. Thank you for sharing the link there, Thomas. DigiNap is saying, if you had no camera, would you buy a DSLR or a mirrorless? If you search what I did on the channel last year, you'll see I sold all of my DSLRs and bought into mirrorless, so that answers your question. Get lit, what's the perfect gear set? So perfect gear. This is going to be a you question, not a I can tell you question. Perfect gear set for a super portable for one person to get the most versatility. Something to be used in a studio or on location. Oh, I mean, this is huge. So this is a series of videos, not something I can answer in text. But like I said, I used 24-70 and a full frame camera and a on-camera flash, and was able to make most of what I shot in a bunch of different locations in the desert with Suki. I did have other gear as well, but it was generally one lens at a time. It's more about knowing how to use it. A single flash with no modifier can be used so many different ways. If you know how to work with light, you can make a wall or a piece of paper or your hand or a plant or a piece of fabric a modifier that will do the job for you. To keep it really simple, I would say modifiers that pack flat. I don't know if I have any right here, but there's ones that just collapse and are basically just fabric, but then they can pop back out. A good option, and if you want to be lightweight but still have stands and stuff, I have some carbon fiber light stands that are great, but if you're shooting outdoors, a little gust of wind will blow them over. Live Faye, can the Nikon 200 f2 be outdated in the future, or is it only bodies that will go? Interesting question. I guess it depends what you mean by outdated. We have a question coming up about the Leica Thermbar lens, for example, there's people who prefer older lenses. So outdated in the sense of Nikon may replace it at some point, and then to some people that will be outdated. Or that in 10 years' time, when Nikon hasn't been making DSLRs for a few years, it may seem outdated. And then how long will they all have support via an adapter? Probably until I'm too old to care, that it'll still be supported in some sense. But certainly bodies are a technology that turn over a lot more quickly. So buying primo glass generally is a longer term option, or I would say almost universally is. Stephen, do you think all of the innovations in LED lighting that speedlights will soon be phased out? I get this question about mirrorless to DSLR or film to digital or all of these things. The fact that people are still talking about film is making a huge resurgence. No, I don't think that speedlights will soon be phased out. I think the speedlight LEDs are another option, that they don't replace the other, even to a lesser extent than digital did to film. And film is still around. They're still making film. I don't think so. I think LED has some great potential. You know, generally when you're looking at lighting, you're weighing up size, weight, the output and heat, and more you can have it be powerful and inexpensive, but it means it's going to be hot, or you can have it be not too hot, but then it won't be as powerful or whatever. Well, LED is a good option that can create a lot of a lot of light output with less heat, but they're expensive. It is coming down. So I use a lot of both, to be honest. Jesse, okay, we have very little going on in the chat. If you have a question, get it in now, because I will need to wrap this up pretty soon. Here we go. Jesse, what are your thoughts on the Leica Thermbar lens? Basically, I haven't actually tried it personally, and no, it's not something I would really use. The look of it doesn't interest me. Eric Erling with a meaty 5-part question that I think I can confidently say I don't know. Do you think, or how likely do you think it is that Nikon will release a D850 successor? You know what, I'm just going to do what you guys seem to want, which is give a specific answer to something that I think I can't, intelligently give a specific answer to, but what the hell. A D850 successor, 40% likely. An FDC adapter that also works with AFD lenses, 50%. A ZFC retro-style mirrorless camera with a full-frame sensor, depends how the ZFC sells. They already tried it with the DF and it didn't sell very well. An F7 film camera, 0%. 5%, I'll say. And a full range of 1.2 lenses, including 24, 35, and 85, 10%. I think they'll do the 85. I very much doubt they would do a 24, maybe a 35, but it would be in 5 years' time. But I don't see them ever making a 24 1.2. And that's all the questions I had saved out. Hurrah. So let's take a look at the last couple of live questions, and then I'll be able to let my videographer in. I think he's waiting outside in the hot lobby. Shahrukh, why have professional full-frame cameras moved away from on-camera flash D800 versus D850? Ask Nikon. I can't answer that for you. The highest end bodies never did. They had an external one and maybe a built-in commander unit. You could argue that it's to have fewer moving parts and less things to break, but I don't know. I really liked having a built-in flash on my camera, and none of the mirrorless really have it, so yeah, it's a bummer. And Rob saying on-camera flash is pretty bad. You can do a lot with on-camera flash, if nothing else, controlling other flashes, but there are times where just having a pop of flash can make a difference. I personally really miss having a built-in flash. Okay, last couple of questions. Camera Prepper, GFX 100S. Do you still have the camera? You had problems with it. Can you recommend it? I don't still have it. I didn't own it. I had it on loan from Fuji Hong Kong. I really loved it, but I did have some problems with from memory, it just was locking up and not working. And I saw online that other people had that problem. The problem with searching online for did other people have the problem is that you'll always find someone who's had that problem because there's tens of thousands of people using the cameras. So it's like going on, WebMD and searching for a symptom. You can find something that tells you you have any possible illness. Assuming that issue is resolved, yes, and I genuinely considered getting one, but then at the moment with the little amount of travel I was doing, I didn't think it was worth it, but I really, really enjoyed that camera. Terry, what's your opinion of the Z7 I first edition for a non-professional? Like I've said so many times on this live show, if the features it offers suits what you need and your budget, go for it. It is a great camera, no reason not to consider it. Being professional or not really has nothing to do with it. You can shoot with an old D700 and do professional work, or you can just use the latest and greatest and do professional work. Do you think Nikon will still be here in 5 years? Yes. Why don't Nikon do a medium format? They're struggling and doing their best to build out a line of mirrorless equipment, and I haven't run a multinational corporation, but I'm sure it's kind of difficult and there isn't limitless money. So, and whilst that would be cool to buy a Nikon medium format camera, sincerely, how many people would buy it? Think about the development costs. I don't think it's a wise move for them. I don't think that many people would buy it. I think a lot of people think the idea of having one would be cool, but for $10,000, yeah, maybe I'm not for me, but it would be cool for the market. No doubt they've done market research on it though. Any other questions? Any compelling reason to get a Panasonic GFX? You mean the Fuji? If you have an A7R3. I've done my best to answer every single question today, but I'm putting a line through it now. I can't tell you what to buy. Think about what you have, what you find lacking, what you want. Look at the market and the options, see if it fits your budget, and then buy according to what's going to suit you. If you are at a point where it's just like, the Fuji GFX would be great if it does this, then it would suit me, then ask me the question, does the Fuji do this well? That's a question I can answer. Should you buy the Fuji? I can't answer that for you. I'm sorry. So I think that might be our final one. Is cereal soup? I guess so in a way. And I had soup for breakfast then today. Okay, so here might be the last one. Sergi, how do you store your gear in a humid place? I know buying a sealed gear, sorry, I don't really follow the wording of your question, but how do I take care of it in a humid place? I have a fridge, kind of, that looks like a wine fridge that just circulates the air and dehumidifies. So whilst the air here may be 60-70% humidity, the box keeps it down around 30, which is a safe level. So nearly all of my gear stays in that. Unfortunately, it's locking as well, so it's kind of acts as a little safe fridge, in a way of speaking. So thank you all for your questions. If you haven't already, I hope you will check out the new course that we have going on over at Art Nude Portraiture. This one isn't full nude, it is work safe. It's some of the shots were shot nude, but the final images are all implied, but mostly it's fashion, lingerie, and swimwear. Lost my train of thought there. And it's going live this Friday. So it's on pre-order sale. There's the countdown timer. It's over 70% off, so if you're interested, check it out. It's a really fun one and a bit different to what we've done in the past. It's a real behind the scenes. You join the road trip, the traveling, the packing, the planning, even through to the editing, but the behind the scenes on all of it with the focused photography instruction on location as well. So I think it's going to be a really fun one. thank you all for joining. If you enjoyed this live, then make sure you've given it a thumbs up and subscribed and all of that, and I'll look at all of that data, and hopefully we can do more of these in coming weeks. I think that'll be it. Better get my videographer in and get to work. Hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you soon.